Welcome back. Okay, let's jump right in. Today's explainer tackles one of the absolute most fascinating, complex character dynamics in modern dark fantasy lore. We're looking at Adar Makandria. Now, she is a young woman who exists as a literal, living, breathing paradox. See, she's caught squarely between the absolute divine light of a realm called Jumala and the ancient, creeping, dark malice of an entity known as Villain. So how does one person hold these two universe-ending forces inside them without, well, just shattering? That's exactly what we're going to map out today.
To do that, here's our roadmap. First, we've got the curse in the blood. Second, awakening the sacred text. Third, a phantom mentor. And finally, two sides of one coin. I want you to keep this central question in the back of your mind as we go through all of this. How does a mortal survive holding absolute light and absolute darkness? Adar's very existence is this impossible, incredibly high-stakes paradox. The forces inside her are totally diametrically opposed, right? The resulting friction should, by all the laws of this universe, completely tear her apart.
Which brings us to part one, the curse in the blood.
Now, there's an absolute, foundational, magical law in this universe you have to understand. Malice cannot be destroyed. It can only be displaced. This isn't just some poetic phrasing. No, it's a rigid rule of cellular and magical physics, and it perfectly explains why this dark power survived what was literally supposed to be its ultimate destruction. To really understand Adar, you kind of have to understand her father, Makandria. He made a totally desperate, calculated attempt alongside Morowayo Guzmanre to break an ancient family curse. The plan? Destroy its vessel, the physical amulet of Circa Rupain. But remember our foundational law from a second ago? When the golden shell of that amulet was shattered, the spiritual corruption inside it didn't just evaporate. It desperately sought biological survival through proximity. So it found the nearest, most vulnerable vessel, which was Lauren's infant daughter, Adar, and it embedded its essence straight into her DNA. So Lauren didn't end the curse. Actually, scratch that. He did end the amulet, but he accidentally rehomed the curse right into his own bloodline. And because this power's origin is rooted deeply in Willem's malice, it behaves a lot like a cornered wild beast that only knows how to answer to fear. It reacts to terror, because fear is really the only language anyone has ever spoken to it. And the most tragic part of this whole shebang, because it's now completely fused to her biology, you just can't destroy the power anymore. To destroy the magic means you literally have to destroy the host.
All right, let's move into part two, awakening the sacred text. Let's ground this really abstract magic into a super tangible, frankly terrifying scene. Imagine this inscription found on an empty metal chest down in the dusty, cobweb-filled catacombs beneath the House of Darren. While exploring with her friends Mimi and June, Adar unknowingly reads these words out loud. He who possesses the power of the night commands the armies of the night. He who controls the night controls all. She didn't just read words off a dusty old box. She brought them to life, inadvertently drawing these absolutely terrifying creatures called chimeras right to them. She's out there wielding ancient incantations without even realizing she's doing it.
So how does this crazy interface actually work? Not even the wisest scholars, mystics, or the immortal bardos themselves can read the Harakh El Jumala. To them, the script just shifts and slides around. It's completely illegible. But for Adar, there's a very specific trigger mechanic. Step 1. She has to experience extreme emotional or spiritual arousal. We're talking pure fury, mortal terror, or profound grief. Step 2. The absolute second her emotions spike like that shifting ancient text suddenly becomes perfectly clear to her, answering directly to her soul. And then step 3, she instinctively starts speaking Old Angarian, which is a totally forgotten ancestral tongue, commanding this raw, volatile power that usually leaves her physically completely exhausted once the emotion fades away. It is magic fueled entirely by raw psychological pressure.
Moving right along to part 3, a phantom mentor.
Enter Jinx. She is the youngest of the 5 bardos. This incredibly cool, ethereal guardian with pale, silver-white hair, a pale blue hood, and a golden sickle at her belt. Jinx is deeply, deeply mysterious. Get this, she can teleport just by snapping her fingers from inside her cloak, plunging a whole room into absolute darkness for a split second before vanishing completely. She keeps a silent, watchful vigil over Adar, often hiding in the very air of a room. It manifests as this cool, warm hum that really only Adar, and very rarely someone highly sensitive like Mini, can even detect.
Adar's initial approach to her magic is, well, it's entirely reactive. Because the power was born of malice, she treats it like a wild beast, bursting out in these wild screams of blinding light whenever she's attacked by the borrowed injury or foul creatures like the Azaliths. Jinx, on the other hand, brings centuries of weighted discipline to the table. She teaches Adar to anchor her soul, to stop staring at the book in totally understandable frustration, and to realize that the power inside her isn't just some curse. It's a tool. It's a key that can open a door to salvation just as easily as it can lead to ruin. I absolutely love this quote from the source material. Jinx tells her, "That is the beginning of mastery, little jewel, not domination, conversation." Jinx is fundamentally teaching this dark, angry power a completely new language. She's stepping in to help Adar carry a weight that literally cannot be removed, slowly transforming a terrified girl into a highly calculated master of both light and dark. And that brings us to our final section, Part 4, Two Sides of One Coin. Okay, to really understand the ultimate secret of Adar's evolution and the Harakh El Jumala, we first need to define a concept called temporal duplication. Basically, this is when two totally distinct manifestations of the exact same entity exist simultaneously within a single timeline, and they completely coexist without causing a paradox, an incursion, or, totally disrupting reality. Because here is the massive, shocking lore twist that scholars in the archives debated for literally centuries. The Harakh El Jumala is not just a magical tool. No, it is literally a temporal duplicate of Adar herself. Remember our core question from earlier? How does a mortal survive holding immeasurable divine light and overwhelming ancient hatred at the exact same time? Well, the answer is they can't. That much opposing force would absolutely shatter a mortal body and dissolve the soul. So long before she ever understood what she was doing, Adar's subconscious devised a genius survival mechanism. She unknowingly transformed an ordinary blank notebook gifted by her father into a literal extension of her own existence. The burden of that universe-ending power was divided equally between her physical body and the book. Because, as the texts observe, neither was ever whole without the other. They were, in every sense, two sides of the same coin. Since they're the exact same entity split into two vessels, their bond evolved into a permanent spiritual gateway that completely transcends distance. Once Adar fully embraces this dual existence and finally stops fighting herself, the evolution of her powers is nothing short of epic, a real game changer. She achieves a form of partial immortality, her aging slows down dramatically, she gains instant healing and near complete immunity to conventional physical weapons. Plus, she masters levitation, telekinesis, and teleportation, abilities that directly rival the Dark Harbinger of Torbur himself. And because she and the book are one, it totally doesn't matter if the Harakh El Jumala is hidden beneath a mountain or sitting across a continent. She can summon it to her hand instantly or teleport herself to its exact location in a fraction of a second. She truly becomes a force of nature. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. With partial immortality, staggering magical mastery, and a soul literally split in two just to survive its own existence, what happens when a vessel meant for boundless light is finally pushed past its breaking point by the ancient malice it carries? Can the conversation Jinx taught her hold up forever, or will the darkness eventually demand its due? It's a brilliant, haunting setup that makes Adar Makandria one of the absolute most compelling figures to study. Thank you so much for diving into this structured breakdown with me. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.